And then I started having that feeling again, that feeling that I had in Wall Street, where I was like, wow, I feel like the living dead. And my resume is getting prettier and prettier, but inside I feel emptier and emptier. And then one day I woke up and I still can't explain it, but like this other voice in me just spoke up to myself. And I just said, I choose happiness.
Hi, I'm Sally Christensen, the founder and CEO of Argent, a women's workwear brand. And this is Work Friends, a podcast for those who take their work, but not always themselves, seriously.
Work Friends.
Today on Work Friends, I'm sitting down with Vicky Tsai, the founder of Tatcha. Inspired by centuries-old beauty traditions passed down from geishas in Japan, as well as her own need for effective skincare products for her sensitive skin, Vicky launched Tatcha in 2009 after years of working in finance and business. It started with a singular product, the Aburatorigami Japanese Blotting Papers, and has grown into one of the most esteemed beauty brands today. Of course, as any founder will tell you, there were many bumps and sacrifices along the way. From selling her own engagement ring to pay for her first products, to getting pressured into stepping down from her CEO title, Vicky, who, yes, did return to the CEO seat, takes us through it all. Now on Work Friends, Vicky Tsai. Hi, Vicky. Welcome.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here with you.
This is a long time coming. This is our first time meeting.
But you feel like an old friend.
I feel the same way. We share a mutual friend, Daniel Martin.
That's right. That's right.
I think we both feel this way, but one of my favorite human beings. And he has talked about you, I think, since our first meeting, and he and I first met in 2019.
He feels like my brother. Yeah. He's wonderful.
Old soul, a connector, and also a very talented human. But yeah, so I'm excited to finally be meeting. And to have you on the podcast.
Also, I'm such a fan.
Oh, thanks.
I feel so fetching right now in my vest.
For those who are just listening to audio, Vicky is in our waistcoat and she is looking really great. So, okay, we like to start with a little icebreaker. I want to know your biggest oh no moment this week. What's gone absolutely sideways and how did you handle it?
I am a working mom of a teenager and I'm in perimenopause. I think the better question is what went right. Because at this point, it would be shorter to answer that. I have really given up on the idea that anything is gonna go right. I'm sort of in the go with the flow era of menopausal life. Trying to redefine successes. I made it through the day.
I do think that's a founder quality though too, where it's like you just have to roll with the punches and remain flexible at all times and adaptable.
Yeah, we made it through the day.
Yeah. Made it through the day, the decade. We're good.
Still
Last
here.
couple decades.
10 fingers, 10 toes, still going.
She's still smiling. Okay, so your story, such a fun one. I'm excited to just go back to the beginning and talk all the way through to current day because you've been through a lot.
As we all have.
As we all have, but yeah, there's some real gems in here. So starting at the beginning, you grew up in Texas. Your family immigrated from Taiwan before you were born.
Yeah.
Can you share a bit about what your upbringing was like in the South and also as a first generation American? And for context, my dad's Turkish. I grew up in South Carolina.
Wow.
And so I'm also first generation.
Oh, it's so interesting.
So we share this, but I'm excited to hear about your experience in Texas.
I moved to Texas when I was 14. And
you weren't.
I was born in Missouri. I grew up in New Jersey, and then I moved to Texas when I was 14.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in New Jersey, I went to a very multicultural school, so I never thought anything really of it. When I went to Texas, I was one of a very small handful of Asian people in my town, and it was the first time that I really realized, one of these kids is not like the other. So I didn't have the experience that a lot of people do in American high schools. I sort of just watched from the sidelines.
What prompted the moves?
My dad worked for Exxon.
Oh.
Yeah, so he got relocated down to Houston for his job, and we went with him. So it was definitely not the typical experience. I definitely felt like an outsider.
Yeah, I've
How about
heard
you?
this a lot. Well, I grew up in Hardyville, South Carolina, but I drove to school in Savannah, Georgia. But what I had a front row seat to was the experience my dad had, and so there was a bit of there was a duality there somewhere where I was traveling to Turkey, spent my summers there. I am Muslim. And I was in high school during 9/11. I remember like a lot of comments that were very Islamophobic, but not you, So I experienced it, but differently, I think, than my friends of color, because I think that like there is a lot of bias, whether it's overt or more subtle in the South, that presents in really interesting ways.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. I think one of the biggest ways it shaped me, because it was high school, was that's like a time in your life where you're coming into your womanhood and you have crushes for the first time, and it's the first time you really try to be beautiful. And because I was so outside the scope of what would be considered, beautiful in any way, that it led me to really give up on ever being someone who would be considered beautiful. So I just threw myself into academics and hoped that would feed me one day.
Yeah. I can't imagine. Yeah, but I also think that you invested in the right place, And then in terms of work, so you mentioned your dad was working for Exxon. What were early examples of work, and what were you aspiring to at a young age? Were you thinking about career?
Of course, I'm Asian. We have no choice.
Oh,
All right. my options were lawyer and doctor, and so I made the unconscious decision at some point that I must be a doctor. And so a lot of my jobs in high school and the first part of college were around trying to get into medicine. And then at the same time, my mom had a beauty store in Houston, so I would go and work in her beauty store and sort of have these fantasies about one day if I can just figure out the right combination of makeup and clothes and styling, that I would have like a swan moment. It never happened, but I still fell in love with beauty.
Yeah. It is so fascinating, like hindsight's 2020, but like how those experiences shape
you.
Yeah.
What was your first job?
I was a server at a restaurant. I wanted to work. I mean, I was an entrepreneur. I was just selling whatever I could. And then I worked in a restaurant. I worked at Banana Republic.
Wow. But you always knew you wanted to be an entrepreneur. You were always
yes.
entrepreneurial.
Yes.
Not me.
Yeah. So was that ingrained in you by your parents? I know culturally it's, doctor, lawyer, but were your parents reinforcing that, or were they helping open up other dreams, I guess, when it came to work?
My parents are from Taiwan, and Taiwan is an island full of a lot of entrepreneurial families. And so on one hand, I saw a lot of entrepreneurship in my family, including with my mom. My mom started a bunch of small businesses, but I think they all hoped that if you come to the U.S. and you get a good education, that you'll have a better opportunity and that you'll do something more. And so I don't think any of them wanted entrepreneurship for me. And it took them a long time, even though they're always incredibly supportive, it took them a long time to be like, okay, I accept it. And I was like, well, I hope so, because we have 100 employees, so it's time to accept it.
Well, that is funny. And I share this so much. I feel like you're like the people that you're closer to are the last ones sometimes to come around to the legitimacy of what you're building. You launch a company and everyone makes this mistake. It's like every person I know is going to be a customer. I'm going to launch tomorrow and just like watch me go. I know so many people that are going to show up, and it's actually quite the opposite. It's like it's the stranger who is your target demo who's going to show up and buy. And if you've done something right and you have product market fit, it's going to be like it's going to be a different than what your expectation is, at least in my experience. But a lot of founders, I think, make the mistake of like, everyone's just going to come by. Does that resonate with you at all, or no?
Well, as you're saying that, it made me realize, did you believed and were engineering the beginning for your company to be big?
Yeah. Were you not?
No, I thought I was going to have an Etsy-sized business.
Oh, okay. We're coming back to this. Wait, okay. Because you had, I mean, I think for different reasons. So you had a career experience before becoming a founder. I did the same. Mine was working towards being an entrepreneur. Yours was envisioning a more traditional career path.
Yes, I'm starting to realize you are an intentional entrepreneur, and I am a
Correct.
unintentional entrepreneur.
I think it might be better to be unintentional too, because that's when you fall into something that's like it's undeniable, and you accidentally started something that people need and are demanding. For me, it's in my bones. There's no other way to exist, but I did want that traditional work experience to give myself like a holistic understanding of business and some like applied experience. And coupled with academic experience, I thought that was the way to set myself up for success. And that's largely like proven true. And that's simply based on how I operate and learn and absorb information.
I have met so few people who've actually wanted to be entrepreneurs their whole career and turned out to be one. So I feel like I'm meeting a unicorn right now. It's very...
Oh, fine.
I have so many questions for you later.
Well, so tell me about... So you grew up, you fell in love with beauty. Your mom had this store. Mm-hmm. You're spending a lot of time there. You're trying to fit in. And then you're studying and working towards college. You went to Wellesley, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Talk me through sort of academia into working world.
How that worked.
Mm-hmm.
So first, when I applied to colleges out of high school, I got rejected from pretty much every single college that I applied to. And that was devastating because I had really built my...
But it sounds like you were a good student.
I was, but it just wasn't enough. And, we didn't know at the time, how race played into things.
Wow.
And so I went to community college that summer. I went to the University of Texas at Austin for 2 years because they had to take me. They had no choice because I was in the top 10% of my class. And I went to a school in Texas. I went there for 2 years, and then I decided I don't want to be a doctor, and I fell in love with economics. Mm-hmm. So I started looking at what colleges had great economics programs, and that's how I ended up at Wellesley. And then I was like, what does one do with economics if you don't become an economist? And I read Liar's Poker, and I was like, Wall Street sounds great. And
out of order. Let me choose my major and then decide what to do with it.
Yeah, I just fell in love with economics. I was like, this
cool.
is fascinating. And then next thing you know, I'm on Wall Street, a credit derivatives trader.
Which it's hard to crack into Wall Street as a woman.
Yeah. Did
you have any challenges with your interview? Like, did you experience any gender bias? Did you feel like?
How long is this podcast?
No, like even just getting in, like even.
Yeah, I was very lucky. I knew from my college application process that if I just tried to get really good grades and send in my resume, that I had just about as much likelihood of getting an offer as I did getting into colleges.
Yeah.
And so I tried to overcompensate by doing everything that I could to stack my resume so I would be a viable candidate. Yeah. And I got into a program called Sponsors for Educational Opportunity. And they have been placing students of color in investment banking, corporate law, management consulting for decades. And it's kind of the only way in for students of color, at least back then. Mm-hmm. And so I got into the internship program, and it was like Pygmalion, where they took a few hundred of us and they put us all in a conference room right before our internship started, and they taught us how to wear a suit, how to shake hands, how to network, what an investment bank is, what sales and trading is, what capital markets are. And then they sent us off to our internships, but then continued to train us throughout the summer because you have 12 weeks to get a job. Mm-hmm. And pretty much everything I learned about being a professional, I learned in those 12 weeks from that internship program.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you feel like you needed all of that too? Like, did you feel like you were a bit naive?
I needed all of it because Wall Street is a whole different animal.
Correct. Yeah.
And then also I went to the trading floor as a trader, and on the bond floor at that. So there's already almost no women, but there's really almost no women on the trading side. And so I got lucky because I was able to find female trader mentors from different, the equity floor or a different company. So I really got some mentorship out of it that I needed to survive that environment. It's pretty brutal.
So how do you actually land the job then? What's the evolution from internship into full-time?
We got to meet the other top 12 banks while we did our internships, and we got to interview with them. They're called like Super Saturdays, where you go and they'll offer you an interview based on your resume. But then you have to go through a lot of tests actually. And, I had to solve logic puzzles and finance puzzles and math puzzles on the spot. And that's how I ended up at Merrill Lynch. And then another, I think, 12 weeks of basically interviewing in different desks and having to build models and prove that you can do it. And then eventually I landed on structured credit derivatives.
What are you envisioning as a future state of this career at this point? Are you thinking it's an inevitability that I'm going to go get my MBA, which you did end up doing, or are you thinking this is where I'm going to be for the next until I retire?
I didn't know. I was like a babe in the woods. I wasn't thinking MBA. A lot of people who go to Wall Street, especially on the sales and trading investment side, they don't get their MBA. That's more on the investment banking, asset management side. And so I didn't intend to do any of that. I was just so happy to be there that I was like, I'm just happy to be here. Yeah. And then within the first year, our place of work was bombed. And so Merrill Lynch was in one of the 4 world financial centers that were around the World Trade Center. My fiance worked in the building as well. And we were both in the financial center when the planes hit. And then we went back down there to work every day for the next few years. And we watched it all up close and personal. So then it became just a matter of how do I survive this? And my fiance, then husband, he got very sick very quickly with an autoimmune disease. And so I became his caretaker. And that was my 20s, was working at a terrorist, bomb
impacted
area and taking care of the person that I loved.
And how does that change your trajectory? I think that's when you step back a bit and decide to pursue your MBA, right?
Yeah, there's 2 reasons for that. One was I realized I have to get the 2 of us out of New York City because we couldn't get him healthy and it was an autoimmune disease. But then I also realized we don't have any skill sets that are broadly transferable. What does a credit derivatives trader do when you're not on a trading floor? And he was an investment banker. And so that's why, going to business school is really our get out of jail free card to start over and figure out what we wanted to do when we grew up, and just start over. But also until 9/11, I was perfectly content to just work myself to the bone until I was 65, hopefully, and just try to make my parents proud and make their immigrant, sacrifice worth it. And it wasn't until after 9/11 and being in ground zero every day for years that I started to realize if the waking hours of my life are all filled with just trying to survive, that is no life. And so I started really thinking a lot about how can I fill my work with a deeper sense of purpose and meaning, because it would be very sad if at the end of my life it's full of work and it was work that was meaningless to me. And so that also drove me to get my MBA, because I thought maybe there's a way I can find a sense of purpose in my work.
Okay, so you both went to Harvard.
I went to Harvard and then he went back to MIT.
Oh wow, okay. Fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was that an intense experience to go through that together? Was it fun to be in those programs? Or I remember being pretty just all in academically. What was that transition like? I haven't heard of a lot of couples pursuing simultaneous degrees. Yeah.
We were so focused on being career changers that we really it was just heads down, blinders on, figure out how to change careers. And I just looked at the watch and I was like, we have 2 years to figure out what we want to do, get the relevant experience, get the internship to prove that, to ourselves and others that we can do it, get the job and move. So there's not a lot of time to dilly-dally.
Yeah.
So we didn't socialize. We didn't, because some people treat the MBA as a 2-year party. And good for you if you can do that, but that wasn't something we could do. So yeah, we just really worked hard to figure out what we wanted to do post business school.
I do think that's the beauty of being an immigrant too, is that we're not straight white men that are failing upwards. It's like and I think this also is true of women. You're 10 steps ahead at all times because you're conditioned to be. You're operating within a patriarchy and you're clocking everything. And in order to be successful, you have to be that much better, that much more prepared. I think you're fascinating because you are in a program that like almost just guarantees a great outcome. You come out of Harvard with an MBA, it opens a ton of doors, but it especially opens a ton of doors if you're like that legacy man, But I think that would be the same for you. How is this shaping what you're envisioning as your future?
Yeah, so I think we all go there assuming that it's like your insurance policy from ever being unemployed and, ever being overlooked or undervalued, but in my experience that wasn't the case, and even now Harvard Business School, the unemployment rate for students graduating from there is climbing. So it's definitely not a slam dunk. I was hoping it would be. Yeah. But when I was in business school, I took something called like a career builder program, and I took all of these different personality test inventories and whatnot to try to figure out what do I want to be when I grow up. And it came back to me and said entrepreneur, and I was like, ew, yuck, I never want to do that, and I have too much debt now. That sounds terrible. And the people who want to be entrepreneurs, they go to Stanford Business School. They generally don't go to Harvard Business School. And so it's not even at that time it wasn't even considered like a viable option. And the couple times you would hear of students saying like, yeah, I think I'm going to start a company coming out of here, everybody's like, So I was like, well, that was a waste of a program. I'm not going to be an entrepreneur. And so I went the brand management path thinking
this is so good.
It leaves as many, options open as possible.
So one question I have is, you talk back about your experience. Is there anything you would change now about the MBA experience? Because it seems like you did, and I did something similar. I didn't do anything socially. I did that in undergrad. I was like fully locked in academically. I wanted every ounce of knowledge and information and like learning opportunity that I could get. But is there anything that you would change? Because you took it very seriously.
Yeah.
And didn't allow yourself like some of the outlets to like de-stress, I feel like,
If I could do anything differently, it is, at the time, especially in the classrooms that I was in, it was not a safe learning environment for women. There was almost no cases taught about women. Even now, the case study on my career is one of the very few taught about a woman protagonist, especially women of color. Our opening case studies were around power tools and baseball. And there was a culture of aggressiveness that put the women into silence. And some of the women were bullied so badly that they almost didn't graduate from the program, or they left the business world entirely and they never came back. And this is going to be my 20-year anniversary next year from graduating Harvard Business School. And only in the last few years have I been able to look back on the environment that we were all in and say that was unacceptable. It was abusive. And if I could do anything over again, I did speak up and I did defend the women who were targeted, but I would have done a lot more. Instead, what I did was I shut off and said, I'm going to put my blinders on, focus on getting the most that I can out of the school resource-wise, and get the hell out of Dodge. But the 47-year-old Vicky looks back on that now and says, I wish I would have done more to help the other women in my class feel safe and like they had every right to be there and to learn.
Yeah, I think that's one of, first of all, a different time and a different age. And I think it took me into my 30s to like really find my voice. And you're still just learning so much about the world, and an MBA is a really specific experience. But what I will say is when I started concepting Argent, and this is in 2015, how many people told me that gender issues had been solved and that it wasn't something that needed to be focused on. And it was at a time where everyone thought Hillary Clinton was going to become our first president, and we're talking about it a lot. And I think talk and reality are very different. So I think that we were just giving it a lot of lip service, and fast forward and look where we are now. But there's still, I mean, this is one of the biggest reasons as to why we exist. There's so much inequity in every industry, and it's really an unlevel playing field for women, especially for women of color. I do also think that we're making progress, and we've recently overcorrected to an extreme degree, but you can't put it back in the box. Women are understanding from the generation before us that it is not, I think they were really forced to operate under a scarcity mindset and pitted against one another. And I think that's a result of the patriarchy. And for us, we see it as more, I think we have more of a mindset of abundance, and like all boats rise with the tide. And yes, there are problematic women, there are problematic people, but generally speaking, your success is my success. So I do think that we are making a lot of progress there.
I hope so. McKinsey just released earlier this year an updated 10-year Women in the Workplace survey, and things are not getting better over the last decade, particularly for women of color. I spent the last 3 years writing a book about my experiences in the business world, and I think the publishers assumed it was going to be a pursuit of happiness book. Like, yay, look at me, I'm the American dream. See, Asians can make it too. And instead, it was a pretty unvarnished look about what it was like to be a woman of color in Wall Street, in the Fortune 500 at Harvard Business School, and then as an entrepreneur. And when they read the book, what they said was, the thing is, Vicky, none of this would happen today. There are HR departments for this.
No.
And I said, the most recent story in this book is from 2021. It is happening today. But I'm so glad that it hasn't happened to you, because that tells me that there's hope. But it is the drumbeat of my career is this stuff. So yeah, it's still really, really bad. And I unfortunately think that it's getting worse in the current environment, but I hold on to hope because we have to hope. We have daughters.
I think that we have more knowledge, and I think that as time passes, culturally we're changing and seeing a bit of a shift. I also do think we're going backwards in some regards. But even household responsibilities and the sharing of household responsibilities is becoming more the norm. That's really important.
Yeah.
And then I also think we are reinforcing different versions of power and success and what that can look like. So we need to see more Vickies. Like, we need to see more people realizing the American dream that look like you. And we need women to just keep showing up when they get knocked down, because we are getting knocked down every single day. The newest pieces from Argent are the ultimate pairing of work and play. Our signature chic tailoring comes alive in lemon yellow, I'm wearing it now, and grass green, which might be my season's favorite. Plus, airy summer dresses serve as the perfect transitional staples, going from desk to dinner, work week to weekend, truly wherever your summer plans take you. As always, Argent fabrics are the biggest game changer in premium Italian seasonless wool, lightweight linen, and 100% cotton to ensure you feel as amazing and confident as you look. Shop all the latest arrivals, including the look seen on Work Friends, at argentwork.com. So from business school, did you end up going straight into starting Tatcha? No, right?
No.
Right. Okay. So brand management into.
I worked for Procter & Gamble over the summer.
Okay.
And I did brand management for SK2. During that summer, I developed acute dermatitis. So my entire face was bleeding and blistering and scaling, including my face and my eyelids. I don't blame SK2. I treated my face like a science experiment by using a whole bunch of competitive products that summer, because I never knew I had sensitive skin until I gave myself sensitive skin. And then after that, I went to Starbucks to launch their consumer products business in China. And that's what took me through Japan all the time. And then from there, I got recruited to head up marketing for a Silicon Valley startup that was focused on sustainability ratings for consumers. And that's when I started learning about the sustainability issues in beauty care. And I was like, 1, gross. 2, I know the margins because I worked in big beauty. 3, is this why my face got so messed up? So I picked up these incredible experiences along the way. I didn't recognize the value of the experiences per se in the moment. I just kept on trying out different size companies, different industries, but it felt like that Three Little Bears story. Everything was just not quite right. And then I started having that feeling again, that feeling that I had in Wall Street, where I was like, wow, I feel like the living dead. And my resume is getting prettier and prettier, but inside I feel emptier and emptier. And like, why did I even start this journey to try to find some purpose in my work if it was just to end up in the same place? And then one day I woke up and I still can't explain it, but like this other voice in me just spoke up to myself. And I don't really talk to myself, but I woke up and I just said, I choose happiness. And I walked like a zombie over to my computer. And I typed out a resignation letter and I drove it into the Silicon Valley startup. And then I was unemployed with $250,000 of debt and a face full of rashes and my husband in a different, state with no plan.
And the naivete to think that entrepreneurship might be the right path. Did you know, or are you thinking I'm going to start something? No, you just thought.
No, I was just unemployed.
I'm just unhappy and I'm going to be.
Just unemployed.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
And then shortly after that, I get pregnant. I mean, I'm married, and then it's 2008. It's a recession.
Yep.
The big one.
That's when I entered banking. It was actually the best time to be in banking because I learned so much and it was so devastating. But I got paid, $38,000 a year or something. It was perfect. I just, wasn't important enough to lose a job.
So, and then I still had those rashes. And the only thing I could put on my face was Aquaphor. So I looked greasy all the time.
Were you in pain too?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, this is foreshadowing to what you ended up starting, but I've been there and so many people have been there where you go to a dermatologist and the solution is to get on drugs and take Accutane or do whatever, and it's not sustainable. It's just not. It doesn't feel like it's at all exhaustive, Yeah.
And then for me, especially the one, when you're pregnant, you don't want to take all that stuff. But 2, eczema, which is what it turned into, became something that really impacted my whole life. Because it wasn't just about like the face that I present to the world. I'm scratching. I can't sleep at night. I'm waking up with blood on my sheets. It really just affects everything. So I was using Aquaphor as my moisturizer. It's the only thing I could use that wasn't making it worse. And then I used to use these blotting papers that I got from Japan on those business trips just to like look less shiny. And I ran out of them one day. So I tried to find them in the U.S. and I couldn't find them. I called my friend from Starbucks Japan. I was like, Tomoko, do you remember where these are from? I can't find them here. And she said, oh, they're the byproduct of the gold leaf beating process in Japan. They're made by Gold Leaf Company. So you would have to really go back to Japan and maybe go to a gold leaf company. And I think a lot of people travel because they're looking to find themselves. And I thought, why don't I travel? I'm in so much debt at this point. Why not take on more debt? And, so I did travel. I went to Europe and I went to Asia. It wasn't like an eat, pray, love thing where I like took yoga classes and cooking classes. I didn't have money.
Are you still pregnant when you're doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But I thought, well, let me at least explore. And so when I was in Japan, for the first time in a long time, I felt peace. And I'm not Japanese. My family's Taiwanese. But it felt like going home. And then when I found these blotting papers at this gold leaf workshop, I was like, wait, what? Is it true that you guys, and they said, yeah, when you hammer gold, you have to use paper or else you'll get a big gold hammer. And the paper that we use in between the ingots of gold is the hammering paper. We throw it away, and then that became the first blotting paper. And when you put it to your skin, it removes the oil without, disturbing your makeup. And I was like, but how does the byproduct of the gold leaf hammering process become one of the first beauty care items? Because they said it's been going on for hundreds of years. And they said, I don't know. You'd have to ask either geisha or kabuki actors, because they're the ones who would come and take the leftover paper and use it. And then I was fascinated. I was like, are geisha real? And they said, yeah. And I was like, can I meet one? And this is where it gets really quirky, because normally the answer would be no. They're very, very, very hard to meet. But they said, okay, and they set up a meeting for me, and then off to the races.
Wow.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about off to the races more, because a lot happened between that and now. It's almost as if you're following this path without really, it's like a personal journey. At what point did that experience turn into an idea for Tatcha? Like, at what point does that turn into, this is something that I want to share with other people?
It kind of happened in two moments. One was I interviewed this geisha for about 2 hours with a translator. Her name is Suzuka, and I was immediately entranced. And I realized everything that we learned about geisha from Memoirs of a Geisha was written by an American man.
Oh, I was going to ask
with an American man's imagination.
Well, we've all read that book, obviously.
Yeah,
it's very similar to when people write books about the South. It's not, it's just such a like romanticized, unrealistic version, oftentimes written by men, but also women, and it's not actually realistic.
Yeah.
Oh,
it is not at all based in reality. They are not concubines. They never have been.
Mm-hmm.
So all the sex in that was just, there's the American imagination part.
Mm-hmm.
They're very similar to kabuki actors, but of course, because they're female, we put the sex layer on.
Mm-hmm.
They're revered in Japan for being keepers of the traditional arts. They dance, they do tea ceremony. Geisha means art person. So it is quite a sham. Even though most people don't understand what kabuki is, they understand it is something that is considered specialized and high artistry and takes a lifetime, and people are honored to meet a kabuki actor. But a geisha is very similar, which is because it's a woman, they just assume differently. And I think that's happened to female performers throughout cultures, throughout time, unfortunately. So I was just completely entranced with her, by her artistry, by her presence, by her beauty. And so I asked her about her beauty care rituals when I realized that they predate the petrochemical industry, which is where a lot of the chemicals that we struggle with these days for our health come from. And she told my translator and I where she gets her stuff. And I had to leave pretty soon thereafter that, but my translator actually helped me get everything and sent it to me. But as she was leaving, I have this picture of her walking away. And I just remember thinking, I've worked in marketing. I've worked in a major beauty company. And I know that there are teams of sophisticated Harvard Business School trained marketers who are trying to come up with stories and fantasies to sell to women. But here's this real beauty history that I can tell is deeply symbolic and anchored in meaning that is rich and deep. And one, I want to understand more, but two, why are we fabricating beauty and beauty wisdom and know-how when it already exists? And it doesn't only exist in Japan, it exists in many cultures. So it was in that moment that I thought, there's something here I want to understand, but I never thought I would turn it into a business. I just thought, I want this to be part of my life. I would like to continue coming to this place where I feel peace and learning from these people who I am utterly amazed by. I feel awe when I'm with them. And then when I got back home, my translator had sent me this box of the things that the geisha had recommended. And it was like a camellia oil and a little bag of rice bran and some seaweed powders and mineral powders. And I used half of them wrong. But my skin healed.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't overnight. It probably took 2 months. But it went from being Google steroid withdrawal to 8 weeks later, my skin was clear and I wasn't on antibiotics and steroids anymore. I'm so grateful because I'm pregnant and I wanted to get off of those. So then I went to Japantown and tried to find these things. They weren't there. And then I went to Koreatown and Chinatown and eBay. They weren't there. So then I flew to Tokyo and I went to Isetan and Mitsukoshi and all the top department stores. They weren't there. Takashimaya, not there. And I was like, wait, how do I get this now? And so it was sort of like I just kept pulling this thread and it kept leading me deeper and deeper into this world.
But it is a full circle moment because you grew up, and I think, this is true of the world, that there's this Western idealized form of beauty.
Yeah.
But it's really like such a lovely journey for you to go on from that experience to then just see how beautiful geishas are and like all, and I think there's, probably it's a medical and also painful journey, literally for you. But are you thinking about that or tying it to your experience at all? Like, is it healing in any way in that regard?
In retrospect, it must have been, and absolutely it was. At the time, I wasn't that self-aware. So I was just sort of lost without any sense of... So I just kept on falling forward into things that I found fascinating and interesting. And it kept bringing me back to Japan, back to Japan, back to Japan. And so I asked the Gold Leaf Artisans if I could bring the blotting papers to the U.S., but kind of as a beta test to see if anybody else would be interested in this completely different approach to thinking about beauty. It's based on history. It's Asian. It's natural. It's not that expensive. Like, is anybody interested in this? And then it launched the day that my daughter was born. That was a really long day.
No joke. Oh my goodness. And what is that like?
Oh, that was a really long day.
Did you, you mentioned earlier, like, I thought I was just starting an Etsy business. Did it feel like that, or had you quote unquote like launched a company,
It felt like an Etsy business, except for the fact that I really underestimated what the startup costs would be. And so I ended up selling my engagement ring and my car and my furniture to pay for the inventory and then pay for a website, because this was before it was easy to put up websites, and pay for shipping boxes and a little bit of like a little brochure to explain how to use it and the history of it.
This is all during your pregnancy.
Yeah.
Where's your husband in this journey?
He had finally moved around that time to San Francisco, and he was working for Cisco, where you worked too.
Oh, we all do a tour of duty at Cisco.
You have to go to Wall Street.
Yep.
You have to go to Cisco.
I loved Cisco. Okay, yeah. So he's okay.
Yeah. And so then we're like really, really in debt. Like, I'm guessing 400, 500
but
debt
he's
at this point.
He's supportive of...
He's supportive. We're in a 1-bedroom apartment in San Francisco. And I was just hoping. You put up a website and I thought, well, if I'm really lucky and I can sell, X many units a year, that would be $100,000. I can at least help cover a lot of rent that way. And then maybe if I pick up another job. So I worked 4 jobs at that time. I was a super for my building. So if somebody's toilet clogged, that was me. I rented out apartments for my landlord, who had a number of buildings in the area. So I would sort of waddle down 9 months pregnant in my sweatpants I look like Humpty Dumpty, and I would try to lease out apartments. I consulted for other companies. Kidding, not kidding. I told my husband at the time, if there was a market for pregnant strippers, I would do it, because I need money to keep this thing going. And then he was like, but you can't dance. And I was like, I know.
Is stress in here at all? Like, are you guys stressed at all?
We are, Because we are living so close to utter financial destruction. We're rolling credit card to credit card to credit card. We would go to California Pizza Kitchen and get the free bread, and then there's like Parmesan cheese and pepper and butter that's on the table, and we would make our own little free pizzas out of that. And water. We really tried to go down to sustenance level. That's what we did.
Yeah.
You know, there was no such thing as maternity clothes. I did not wear, I just simply stopped wearing any clothes I couldn't fit into, or I wore his clothes.
For you to not say that you're not entrepreneurial, though, everything about you is entrepreneurial at this stage.
We're just trying to survive.
I know, but that's survive. I mean, that is entrepreneurship, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
One and the same. I think the definition of is surviving.
Yeah. So your question was, what was it like? I worked 4 jobs. I sold everything I owned and just tried to go. But you get this surge of energy in like your last trimester. And so I was like, I will use it.
Yeah, which is, I mean, that's a whole other conversation. I feel like society's like, do you need to sit? Don't do that. And I feel like when I was at the 3rd trimester, I was unstoppable.
Get out of my way. I have the strength of 10 men.
Yeah. Last hurrah before that baby comes.
Exactly.
All right. So you launched Tatcha and the crowd goes wild.
Amazingly, with the blotting paper, something happened.
Yeah.
So I couldn't get a PR agency. Obviously, I couldn't afford one, and nobody wanted to help. But someone who was helping me out, a friend, found Daniel Martin, and I connected with him. And he was keying some fashion shows and fell in love with the blotting papers and said, send me a bunch and I'll hand them out to my friends. And the friends all turned out to be celebrities and beauty editors. And then he used them at fashion shows. They got into magazines from there. So all things start with Daniel Martin.
I did not know this.
Yeah.
I didn't know he was along this early.
Oh, from the beginning, when it was just a blotting paper.
Daniel, for those who don't know, because he keeps coming up, and I imagine he'll continue to come up, Daniel Martin. He is a mutual friend, and he's a celebrity makeup artist, and unbelievably talented, but also just a really kind person, which I'm sure is obvious from our conversation. And he's been in the industry for, over 2 decades and has every accolade to his name.
He was so excited for me and would check in and give me advice. And then when I asked him, do you think that I should hire a PR agency? He's like, let's go sit down with an editor of Vogue and ask her. And we would just go to dinner. So he just opened up this world to me. He was so incredible, continues to be incredible. And he was one of a handful of angels who made all of this possible. And then we had our first acquisition offer within 8 weeks, and then our second acquisition offer within a couple months after that.
Well, I have 2 questions. One is really, at this point now you're getting acquisition offers. Are you thinking about a suite of products and thinking much bigger given all this early success that you're seeing?
So this is where it went kind of funky. We got these acquisition offers. By we, I mean I. There was no we. It's just me.
Yeah. It's always we, though.
But
it's always
because
we.
It sounds like there's a company. This is me, which I'm surprised by. And in the same time, I'm still going back to Japan and learning about all this stuff, and I'm falling more and more in love with Japan. But I also am starting to fall in love with these people who become my teachers. Men and women in their 60s and 70s in their retirement who, heard about what I wanted to do and came out of retirement to advise me, help me. And I just started falling in love with them and all the things that they were teaching me about beauty, about leadership, but also about like how to live life differently. Mm-hmm. And then I met this incredible guy named Brad Murray, and he was also Harvard Business School. I didn't know him at the time. He went to JH Partners, which was a VC that focused on beauty at some point. So he had both VC and beauty background, but he wanted to be an operator. And he's very sparkly and great at sales and fundraising. And so I asked him if he would help me have these conversations with the potential acquirers, but I didn't want to be acquired. And I was just wondering if there was a way where they can handle the financing and I could be free to do the business. And one of the acquirers told him she doesn't want to build a company. She just wants to do the fun stuff. And his response to them was, of course she wants to build a company. Why would she go to Harvard Business School if she doesn't want to build a company? And he said that to me, and I was like, oh, yeah.
Totally. Totally, Brad.
But he believed in me, and he believed in the potential so much
Yeah.
that he made me believe in it.
What a great ally. Oh, okay. This is a theme. I cannot overstate the importance of someone that one person, it can be one person that you respect that believes in you can make
is the game changer.
It's the game changer. It
And
makes all the
I had
difference.
half a dozen of them. And I continue to be so, so, so grateful for them. They're the real secret behind Tatcha. I'm just like the person they wouldn't let fail.
Do you know what I think those people are? The mirrors. I don't know that they're like, I think that they're kind and really special, but I think that they do a good job of holding up a mirror and forcing you to see your potential.
I wish that his name is Brad Murray. I wish that everybody in the world could have a Brad.
For a decade alongside Brad, you're building what turns into Tatcha. I mean,
yeah, it was with Brad. It was also with his incredible team from Japan. There was a chief scientist who came out of retirement to create the Tatcha Institute so that we can create all of our formulas from scratch and our most important ingredients. There is Tanaka-san, who is the chairman of Shiseido International, who came out of retirement to teach us how to business. And there was Nami Onodera, who became our chief cultural advisor, who did all of the research for us. So it was a whole, and then two other people in Japan who actually are scientists. So it was a really amazing team of these Japanese powerhouses, but they're all in their 50s and 60s. Now they're in their 60s and 70s. They're all still with the team. They're all still making the formula, making the juice. We're all still like the best of friends. We're family. So it was all of us together who did it.
so looking back, I'm curious to hear what experiences or traits you credit most for your ability to lead the company.
I think motherhood. I think becoming a mom taught me how to ask questions with genuine curiosity, how to take a lot of joy in watching someone else grow, how to be humble and resilient, because toddlers can really work you over.
Oh yeah, the great equalizer.
And my daughter would learn things in school where I'm like, I should really bring that to the executive team. So in kindergarten, they learned about 2 stars and a wish. Here's two things that I really like about what you do, and here's my one wish. And I was like, that's a nice way to give feedback. And so I would take that in, and I'd be like, Brad, I've got a couple stars for you and just one wish. But yeah, I really think motherhood, and a lot of the top leaders in our company are women and mothers, and always have been and are today. And I think what they bring in with them is this emotional intelligence and patience and deep listening skills that make them really great leaders.
You've pretty publicly spoken about questioning and doubting yourself too at points in the journey. Is that something that still crops up? Like, do you feel imposter syndrome?
No. Here's a good thing about perimenopause. Something changes. You're not there yet, but I will tell you.
I've read all 4, so I feel like I'm like borderline. I think it's around the corner.
People talk about the hard part of perimenopause, and there are parts that are not so fun, but I swear to goodness, something changes in you where I'm like, oh no, not only do I not feel that, but there's this other part of me that's come out where it's just like, no, not on my watch. You're not going to talk to her like that, not on my watch. You're not going to look at my kid wrong, not on my watch. Everything is not on my watch anymore. The patience and the filter and the desire to be small and to be pleasing and to not offend burned off. It's gone. That Vicky is in the past. So no, that's gone.
I mean, I have chills. This energy we should all adopt, especially current state. This is excellent.
It's good for this time of life. I will say, I'm kidding around about it coming with menopause. I think it came from having the scars from the battle. But I really am empathetic to people who feel and I know we're not supposed to call it imposter syndrome anymore. I don't know what the replacement word is for it, but the sense that they don't deserve to be in the space where they're in, I really understand it, and I feel empathetic for it. And I also want to let them know that when you get to the other side of that, it's awesome.
Yeah, and the trick is not to give up your power. Like, people are trying to convince you to give over your power, and you have control over that, you know?
Yeah.
It really is mindset, attitude, and like fighting for what you deserve.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it leads me to, so in 2019, Tatcha was acquired by Unilever. Why did you decide to sell when you did?
There's a couple things. One is, I mean, very, very, very honestly, our growth was so fast for so many years that, you know, people kind of think that once you get through breakthrough velocity and you get profitable, then you don't have to go to outside capital anymore. And for some industries, that's true. But in our industry, that's not really true. And the faster you grow, the more capital you need, profitable or not. Especially if you invest ahead of the curve in things like people or formulas and R&D. You know, you're always outlaying more. And so when we took private equity, and then the private equity operating partner told me, "You are not a CEO. We have to bring in a real CEO." One, I trusted him and I believed him, and then two, I thought, if I don't have what it takes to run this company, then I don't deserve to own this company. So I think it was almost a form of like self-punishment. But there was also other strategic reasons. We'd gotten to a size where we had to go global, and laying out that kind of, there's two ways to do it. You build it, or, you know, you get on somebody else's distribution system. So there was value in becoming part of a bigger company, because then instead of building our own sales teams and our own international regulatory and all those things, we could leverage the resources of a bigger company to be more capital efficient. We had investors who'd been with us for 10 years who, you know, deserved a return. My daughter was turning 12, I think, and I realized I had precious few years left with her before she went to college, and I had been working 100-hour weeks for 20 years, and I was on the road for 250 days out of the year. So I thought this might be a way for me to spend more time with her. And then finally, we fund girls' education. So every single thing that we sell sends girls to school around the world, especially in low-income countries where they could otherwise be sold into childhood prostitution, childhood marriage, forced factory work. And as the company grows, the impact grows. So we crossed over 12 million days of school last year. I think 15 million by the end of this year, 20 million by the end of next year. So our growth actually really matters. And it's not just for my ego to say that the company's big. It's really a platform for change. And I knew that the bigger that we got, the less acquirers, you know, we had. Because not everybody can take that big of a company in. And then also very few of them would protect that giving model. Like, I know if we went to L'Oreal, the very first thing they cut would be our giving model. But L'Oreal would be one of the few players who can afford you at that size. And so when Unilever said, we will leave you independent, we won't touch anything about how you make your formulas in Japan, how you manufacture in Japan. We don't touch your team. We don't touch your giving model. You are a part of the Unilever family where you can use our back-end resources, but we don't touch you. Then I said, it would be selfish of me to say no. So I said yes, and I've never regretted it. They've actually been incredible. But
The thing I did want to dive into, though, is the conversation with the private equity firm of the, you know, you're not a CEO, and you stepped back for a couple of years. Did you leave entirely for a couple of years, or no? You just took a...
I was supposed to be chief product officer in this new structure with this first new leadership team that was installed by private equity, but I was not able to work in that environment because I literally didn't have a seat at the table. I remember sitting at my desk and seeing everybody get up in the company because it opened this office plan, and walking over to the big conference room, and it's a glass wall. And I was like, what meeting is going on right now? It's not on my calendar. And then somebody's like, oh, it's a product meeting. I was like, oh, I'm the chief product officer. I don't know about that meeting. And then I would go in, and there would literally not be a seat for me. And so I would stand in the corner, and I was like, oh, how funny. This is what it's like to not have a seat at the table in your own company. And I would sit there, and I would watch, and there would there would be no space for me to speak. And then if I did speak, and then I would go, I would have to leave to my next meeting because it wasn't on my calendar. As soon as I walked out, the new leadership would say, disregard everything she said. And so I did a quiet quitting, if you will, where I left the company and only worked on far out innovation, but I didn't tell anybody because I didn't want people to worry. So I wasn't effectively with the company for the duration of the time that these new leaders were in place.
There's so many questions I have just for this point in time. Is that hard for your, are you mourning a loss in any way? Or are you taking that as an opportunity to recover from what I imagine was, 10 straight years of really hard work?
Deep grieving.
Yeah.
Deep grieving.
Yeah.
Lots of therapy.
Founders are oftentimes thinking about what you have a moving goalpost, and a lot of times it's, you're selling or you're going public or whatever it is. But what you don't realize when you sell or when you step out or back and, out of a leadership role is how much of a part of your company has become.
Yeah. And I never had a goalpost in mind. I never, because I thought it was going to be an Etsy-sized business. All I ever really wanted was a place where I could feel accepted, and a place where I could create and work and feel free and be with people who I admired and could feel a sense of community and connection with. So these people became my chosen family. We worked together side by side for 10 years. Our children were born and raised together. The office was full of our children, our dogs, our spouses were close. We vacationed together. Their children would intern with us and then grow up and work for us. People got married who worked in the company. Like this was my family, and my place with them, not externally as founder and CEO of Tatcha, but internally, my place with these people was my identity, just like being a sister, a mother, and a wife is your identity. And then when I didn't have a place in there anymore, what I was grieving was the place that I created that I needed in this world I can't go to anymore. And it broke my heart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And less than 2 years later, they come calling, inviting you back to be the CEO. There has to be something that feels really good about getting that call. No. Okay.
It was awful because in the 2 years between when I stepped back and when I came back, my phone was on nonstop, and my emails and texts were on nonstop of people saying, I love you, I love this company, but I can't be here anymore. So entire departments quit.
Oh.
Then beyond that, people who I really care about, who I really, really love, would talk about the impact that it was having on them, how it was affecting their health, their mental health, their family relationships. Then we went into COVID. Then we have AAPI hate, and now they just feel physically unsafe. They don't know whether they're going to be laid off or whether they're going to have to go out and work with the general public when they don't feel safe as an Asian woman, when there's no PPE, when there's no vaccines. So by the time that my husband at the time and I, who also built the company alongside us, Eric, by the time that we went back to lead the company, we had to take over 11 roles, including the entire C-suite, half the VP team, some director roles. And it was back to 100-hour weeks, back to just trying to help the company survive. And so we said, we'll take all the income from the salaries that we're covering. We won't take any pay for any of this. And I didn't take pay for the first 8 years, and neither did Brad. And we're going to take all that money and just put it back into the company and try to fix things. But it was really hard. And one of the first things that I had to do when I came back, everybody's like, yay, Vicky's back, mom's back. And then the first thing I had to do is run layoffs.
Yeah.
That sucked.
Yeah, of course.
Especially because some of the people I had to let go were people who were along for the entire ride, who were instrumental and essential to the company, who I personally care deeply about. But the company had changed so much, the needs had changed so much, that there wasn't a way to make it all fit anymore. And now I was responsible for getting the whole thing through COVID. Yeah, it was awful.
I mean, you've successfully navigated that, right? Now you've come out on the other side. What do you think defines the current chapter of Tatcha now?
Yeah, when we took back over in 2021, we we had gone from number 3 with our top retailers to number 10, and we were falling like a fast rock. Our retail partners had told us that they, had lost confidence in us. Our internal company surveys, people said, I feel this company has lost its soul. Like, it was really bad. And luckily, by the end of the turnaround, we were back to number 1 with our retail partners, and we put in place the first diverse leadership team in beauty at scale, which is crazy because that was 2021. That should not have been the first year there was a diverse leadership team. There's still almost no female beauty CEOs for the large companies. They're all men.
If you look across all industries, it's a consistent theme, unfortunately.
Fashion is the same. People would assume that fashion and beauty are run by women. They are not run by women.
Correct.
And then, so we called the turnaround years Tatcha. So there's the building years was Tatcha 1.0. And then I call them the lost years. There's no other way I can describe them. That's Tatcha 2.0. And then Tatcha 3.0 was sort of where we are right now. And we're stronger for it. And we're more appreciative of the company and ourselves and each other for it. And it's kind of like being at ground zero on 9/11, where that was a serious tragedy where there was loss of life. So that's not really comparable, but in terms of a clarifying moment where you have to feel like you're about to lose the things that are dear to you in order to realize how much you love and cherish them and how lucky you are to have them. And so we're in our Tatcha 3.0 years where we really focus a lot on what do we stand for, what are our values, and how do we make sure that never happens again.
I would love to close this out by asking some advice.
I don't think you need my advice.
No, our listeners need your advice. This could be a 100-hour episode. Your experience, there's so much.
I want to turn the tables and ask you the questions next, but I know that I've got to let you go because I've kept you for too long.
If someone's listening today who does not feel that their purpose or passion aligns with their work, what would you advise them? And is it okay to not marry the two?
Different strokes, different folks. I think some people find their purpose outside of work, and some people need purpose in their work in order to keep them going. I'm the latter. I need purpose in my work. So I think if you are someone who feels that enriching a large corporation and nothing but that is just not a life for you, then I would say be creative. Lots of people ask us, what does girls' education have to do with Japanese skincare? Why? And my answer was, why not? There are so many externalities in the world that have been created by business. The beauty industry has for so long taught women that their sense of worth should be tied to external definitions of beauty instead of letting us feel valuable and whole and enough because of our hearts and our minds. So if I can take a big chunk of these profits and send it to girls to make sure they stay in school and they also learn about rights over their body, rights over their money, rights over their futures, then that's a company worth working for. And it's okay if you don't understand the connection, because I do. So Tatcha is a little platform for funding, gender equality and girls' education globally. And I hope we get to 100 million days of school soon. And it just took a creative solution to try to do that. And I can say, as the company got bigger and as our challenges and successes changed things, the one thing that always fueled me and always kept me going was the girls and the girls that we support. So I think it's a great way to keep fueling yourself to fight another day.
Yeah, that resonates so deeply. I every single founder has days where they want to quit. Every single person, I think, has days they want to quit, and so it's finding whatever it is that fills your cup again, and everybody's different. But for me, it's going back to the customer that we dress and what she's showing up to do and how much it means to her and the impact that we're able to have just with our product,
I love that.
And eventually I do hope to graduate into what's our philanthropic arm. But I think it comes in stages, and I think I don't want to be premature and just, have scope creep, but at some point I do. I very much admire what you have accomplished.
Oh, thank you. And, I would say it's never too early. We did it early on, but we tied it to sales. so that it grows with our sales. So when we were little, our impact, was smaller. And as we grow, the impact is bigger. And it's okay to have the impact grow with you.
Totally. So. Yeah. Now we get to my favorite segment, quick game of Would You Rather.
Okay.
Would you rather start work at the crack of dawn or burn the midnight oil?
Crack of dawn. I'm a lark. I think a morning lark.
Same. Would you rather go to school to learn a new skill or teach what you know to a class of newcomers?
Teach to the newcomers because I want things to be better for them.
Would you rather only answer emails with emojis or only answer calls on FaceTime?
Neither. I quit my phone and email. Sorry. That's my only flex. I quit the digital world.
Would you rather write a great piece of feedback or receive a great piece of feedback?
I'd write it because I love letting people know what their superpowers are.
Stars. 2 stars and a what?
2 stars and a wish.
Would you rather hold big brainstorming sessions or only do tiny 10-minute check-ins?
Big brainstorming because amazing things come out of big groups.
Agree. Would you rather accidentally leave your mic unmuted or your camera on?
I've done both. I think I'd rather leave my mic on because I've come to the point in my life where I will say whatever is on my mind and I really don't care who hears it anymore. So go ahead and keep the hot mic. Go for it.
That's a good flex. Would you rather start a beauty brand in the early aughts or the present day?
Present day, because the digital world and social media make it so easy to connect directly with your clients without intermediaries. Early aughts, you were beholden to editors and beholden to retailers.
Pros and cons, though, too. It's so saturated.
It is saturated. But I found that clients are so sophisticated. So if you make something amazing and you are patient, they come back over and over again.
I can't thank you enough for being here.
I am so honored to meet you, and I'm so proud of you and what you've done, and we need 10 more of you, and I'm only going to wear your clothes from now on. Thank you.
I mean, my life is made. Thanks for listening to Work Friends, a podcast from Argent. Listen and follow on all podcast platforms and subscribe to the Argent YouTube channel for more clips and bonus content. Plus, email your work questions and dilemmas at workfriends@argentwork.com for a chance to have one of our amazing guests weigh in with advice. I'm Sally Christensen, and we'll see you next time.
Work Friends.
Work Friends is produced by Gina Marinelli with editing by Ryan Woldoff. Our theme music is by Karina De Piano and Melanie Naima. This episode was recorded at Podhead Studios in Los Angeles, California.